My first year in WWE, I was making $500 a week. But for me, it was about getting my foot in the door. 18 years later, I'm still here.
Your name was being thrown around talking about the inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion.
I was so grateful for that, but it's also something that I want to earn. When there's a really great story, that's what makes winning it special.
Give me your Canadian Mount Rushmore.
Drum roll.
But you can't pick any Harts.
Oh, come on. You are begging to be put in the Sharpshooter.
You helped Nikki Bella get ready for her return at the Royal Rumble.
Yes, she hasn't lost it. She has so much passion for this.
What's the story of her knocking your teeth out?
Ooh, you really did want the tea today. So, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel like I have to beat someone up now.
Oh. Canada loves you.
I am
Canada
so
loves
excited.
you.
I am so excited to be here. I literally, we were like in crazy traffic getting here. I got out of the car and started running on the street in high heels because I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to go meet Chris. So
you made it.
Yes, got my cardio in. I'm here.
Well, not just me. You had to meet everybody in this room too.
Thank you guys so much for being here. This is amazing. And when you asked me to do this, of course, I was so excited. And any chance to talk to you is amazing, but also to connect with all of you is just incredible. So thank you guys so much.
And it doesn't, yeah, okay, yeah. And it doesn't get any better than doing it back home in Canada for both of us. What does it mean for you to be back home in Canada?
So people ask me that when I come back to Canada, I don't just say, you know, I was born in Calgary, but if you're part of the Hart family, Canada is just home. It's just, it's always going to be our home. It's truly where our heart is, pardon the pun. And we just always feel so loved, so embraced. And it's like, you know, this is where my grandfather started everything for our family. From Stampede Wrestling to what he built with my uncles, Bret, Owen, Davey, Dynamite, my dad. So you know, just for me, there's always so much gratitude coming back to Canada. And of course, you know, I love my ketchup chips.
Is that the thing you miss the most? Is it ketchup chips?
Tim Hortons and ketchup chips. It's funny because I love Tim Hortons and I get so excited. TJ does too. When I land, even if I've had a bunch of coffee, I'm like, I gotta get Tim Hortons. I gotta get my double.
Like you going right to that one in Pearson Airport? Like you don't even leave the airport?
Usually I go get my rental car and I find a Tim Hortons and I go through the drive-thru. I have a whole process. I take a selfie, I post it.
First stop, Tim Hortons. That's how I feel about Swiss Chalet. Oh, yeah.
Love Swiss Chalet.
Swiss Chalets.
But I mean, I used to work before I got to WWE and I was a waitress. And so I worked at a restaurant called Montana's.
Of course.
And before I worked at Montana's, I worked at a restaurant called Humpty's. And to this day, Humpty's is my favorite. Like people will say, where do you want to go to eat? When I come up to I said to Bret, I was like, let's go to Humpty's. And I was like, I got to get my eggs Benedict. Like it's just a Canadian thing. I don't know if you guys have Humpty's. Do you guys have Humpty's in Toronto? No, okay. Humpty's is in, so it must be like a Calgary, West Coast thing. But yeah, I worked at a place called Montana's. I worked there as a waitress.
We know Montana's.
Yes.
Yeah.
I worked there as a hostess, a bus person, and a waitress for like 10 years until I finally got hired by WWE. And I remember telling my manager, and I will never forget this moment. I told my manager at Montana's, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm just giving you my 2 weeks notice. I just got hired by WWE. I did not say I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. But I was so excited because I was like, I had worked that waitressing job and I was, like I said, a hostess. I cleaned bathrooms, I bussed tables, and I did my wrestling when I wasn't working at that job. And I just fought so hard to get here. And I always remembered how much I actually enjoyed waitressing and I think everybody that does public service or works in the service industry, like I give them a round of applause because you guys, whoever works in restaurants or retail or has to serve people, it is not easy. Yeah. It is not easy.
What was the best tip you ever got? And what was the worst tip you ever got?
Ooh, well, the worst tip I ever got was no tip.
What did you do wrong? Or they just sucked?
It was funny because I was waitressing and I was doing the closing shift and somebody had come in, a group of they were coming from like a clown convention. there was like 20 clowns. They walk in, we closed at 10 o'clock at night. They walked in at like 9:57. I was all by myself, and I was like...
Sounds like a horror movie.
Trust me, it was. There was one cook in the back. There was the bartender, myself, and the manager on, and I was like, we have 20 clowns at the front door. It's like 3 minutes to close. The manager's like, we got,
You're like, no, actual clowns.
They let them in, and we had the one cook making it. Anyway, I didn't get tipped, and I was so upset, and I never wanted to serve a clown again. So... But I mean, I've gotten great tips before too, and that's why, like, even now, because I remember what it was like being a waitress. I remember I started at like $4.50 an hour at Humpty's, and then when I got hired at Montana's, my starting wage was $7 an hour. So yeah, I know it's like crazy because I just remember working so hard for like scraps, and so now when I like to tip people well, I like to take care of them. I know that a good tip can make a huge difference. It can make somebody's day. So, I just like to spread the love.
Now that you are in WWE and you have been for a long time, what was the moment? Was there a moment where you were like, I have made it? Obviously, getting that call and being able to quit your waitressing job was one of them. But what was the moment when you were in WWE when you went, man, this just clicked?
There's been so many moments. I mean, just getting the phone call. I remember getting the phone call that I was getting hired. I was so excited because I was like, it's funny now because, there's always, like, you hear about contract negotiations and this and that. I remember when I got called, I was told, like, hey, we're going to hire you at this amount. And then they called back and said, actually, we changed our minds. It's going to be a little lower. And I was like, no worries. Don't even worry about it. It's fine. I'm good. It's all good. Like, I just remember being so excited, even though they called back and said, like, actually, no, it's not going to be that much. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I was just so excited when I got my first WWE check in the mail. And I still have, so this is funny, I actually have never shared this before, but I have saved every single paycheck I've ever gotten from WWE. I've saved the stub, like the check stub. I've saved all of them. Every single one of them I have saved. Because I just remembered, like, how big of a deal it was for me to get that. And so even when they were small and I was only making, my first year in WWE, I was making $500 a week. So, of course, that's, it's not terrible by any means when you're just getting started, but when you have to pay for, ring gear and your hair and your makeup and you have to pay taxes on that, in some ways, it was less money than I was making as a waitress. But for me, it was about getting my foot in the door. Like, I just had to get my foot in the door. And that's, 18 years later, I'm still here. I'm still standing. Yeah. But yeah, just getting to be a part of the company, I never have ever taken it for granted, and I always try to approach going to work, like, even though we all are human, we all have our highs and lows and ups and downs, I'm just so grateful that I get to do such a fun job and do what I love and do something that just, like, it just fulfills me. It makes me so happy.
Yeah. You've been in WWE for 18 years. You're the boat. And it's not just a nickname, you're the boat. But I feel like there's a certain section of the audience that doesn't give you the respect that you deserve. What do you say to those people?
Well, here's the thing, is that, like, even right now in WWE, we look at the women's division, it's never, ever been this competitive ever. We've never had, across NXT, Raw, SmackDown, it's never, ever been, like, the girls that we have across the board are incredible. I look at the NXT women's roster and I'm like, oh, they're amazing. There's so many women there that I want to work with. And I look at the Raw women's roster, there's just, everybody is so good. I look at the SmackDown women's roster, it's just, everybody is very, very talented. And so you have all this stuff to choose for, all these different styles and different, as we say, flavors of ice cream to choose from, with every girl bringing something unique to the table. So for me, because I have been here for so long, I understand that, like, even for me, I don't like everybody. Not everybody has to like everybody. Not everybody has to like me. And when I signed my new deal with WWE, I signed it last June. And I thought to myself, as long as I continue to stay in WWE, I have to always remember to keep proving myself. I can't just rest on the fact that I have, a world record for the most matches or the most wins or the most this or the most that, or that I had a really great match with Charlotte at TakeOver. To me, when you continue to work in WWE, you always have to keep proving yourself, no matter what it is that you're doing, even if you're not working at WWE. So I kind of made that vow to myself that if I want to continue working here, I have to not only prove myself and not only fight to be in this division, but also fight to prove my detractors wrong. And so that's why I thought about myself wrestling elsewhere. I thought, I wonder what it would be like. I wonder what it would look like for me to wrestle elsewhere. And I want to wrestle everywhere. That's the thing, is I want to wrestle everywhere. That's what I love about my ring. My ring is really kind of like a forbidden door, my dungeon, the dungeon that TJ and I have. I love all these different people coming in and just bringing passion, whether it's Joe Hendry, whether it's Kevin Knight, whether it's Dyrese, whether it's Riho, whether it's, B-Fab comes in, Dawkins, Apollo, all these different people come to our ring, whether they're on the independents, they come from all these different places, and that's what I want to do. I want to wrestle everywhere. And I love that WWE is starting to do that, and actually in the coming weeks, because of how I feel about this and the need to continue to prove myself in the division and fight to be in the division and fight to have my spot in the division, because honestly, just because I've done a bunch of stuff here doesn't mean wrestling owes nobody anything. WWE doesn't owe me anything. So for me, it's always about proving myself with everything that I do. Every practice that I run at the dungeon, every match that I have in WWE, it's all about proving myself. And so in the coming weeks, there's going to be some announcements made. Yes, and so we're going to be addressing this. Yes, we're going to be, WWE and myself, we're going to be addressing some very, very exciting things coming up because, I want to wrestle. I really want to wrestle everywhere.
Where is Nattie going to show up? Okay.
The card is officially set for night 1 and night 2 of WrestleMania, and the odds are up now at MyBookie. And if you look at the favorites, seems like we could have quite a few new champions. Jacob Fatu, favored for the United States Championship. Dominic Mysterio, favored in that 4-way match. Jey Uso, favored against Gunther. And John Cena is the favorite against Cody Rhodes. They've also got props like what's the shirt color that John Cena is gonna wear, and who does Paul Heyman leave the ring with after the triple threat match? The odds say CM Punk. You can also get in on the UFC action or the NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, baseball season's here, all of it. And when you sign up at MyBookie and you use my code CVV, they'll add a nice little bonus to your bankroll. So if you put in $50, they'll give you an extra $25. If you put in $100, they'll give you an extra $50. So now you've got $150 to take a look at those WrestleMania odds there. Bet anything, anytime, from anywhere, only in MyBookie.
You talk about the Dungeon 2.0. You've had so many people come through there. One of them recently was Nikki Bella. You helped Nikki Bella get ready for her return at the Royal Rumble.
Yes, Nikki actually has been coming and training with me privately. So she flies in every week, and she's been coming and working with me. And I will tell you that she hasn't lost it. Like, she has so much passion for this. And it's funny because I saw her last week. She came to Tampa, and I said to her, I'm like, this is so funny because like we started our careers together in the very same week, Nikki and I, and Brie. And so we started together in the same week in developmental in WWE. And I remember when all three of us had nothing. All three of us were hired, at the very base amount of pay. And it was never, ever about the money. It was always about the work, the passion. And so we were just laughing and sharing old stories about like I didn't have enough money to buy wrestling gear. So the Bella twins, they were giving me their clothes. Because when you just get started, you're just kind of like literally just getting started. I went to Florida with this one suitcase because I was like, I got to get down to Florida. I'll just leave everything behind. I'll get back to Calgary. I never went back to live because I my whole life with WWE has been kind of stateside as far as like living. But I didn't have money for a lot of the things that we need to look like superstars. So the Bella twins, they were giving me their clothes. They were giving me stuff to like look nice. And I was taking certain things that they had and I was cutting them up and like gluing my own like sequins on them and trying to make it. I look back on that now, I'm like, Nattie, you look like, pardon my language, but I was like, I wouldn't have hired you looking like that because you look horrible. But you do what you have to do, and I just remember those early years with the twins, and so being able to help Nikki prepare for Royal Rumble, and of course, I would love to see Nikki back. I'm looking for a tag team partner, and of course, I'd love to have Nikki as my partner, but I just love her and I love Brie so much, and they just have so much passion. And so seeing what Nikki's doing in the ring and doing in our dungeon, I mean, our dungeon is really like a dungeon. Like we try to make it as much like the original dungeon that my grandfather started in Calgary. There's no air conditioning. It's in Florida. It's just a small room it's a room big enough to put a ring in, and there's one bathroom and there's some fans. And there's a lot of stray cats that my husband and I feed.
They haven't made their way to your house yet?
They haven't made their way to my house, but TJ, like, there's outside of our dungeon, there's all these like little stray kitties. So I don't know, there's a whole bunch that we're feeding. I mean, we have 8 cats, guys. I have 8 cats living at my house.
What are all their names?
So there's Boo, there's... Okay,
you better get them all.
So there's Boo, there's Harley, named after Harley Race. My little kitty, the newest baby we have is named after Harley Race. Okay. He's a total heel, this kitten. He's such a heel. There is Wheezy, named after Lil Wayne. And there is... there's Cooney, named after Hakuna Matata. So he looked kind of like a little warthog when he was a kitten, so we named him. Okay, so that's the first 4, right?
Okay, yeah.
So those are the first 4. Those are on my side of the house. My mom actually lives with me, and we love her to death. She has 4 cats, so that's why I have 8 cats. So my mom has Georgie, Archie, Mitzi, and Henry.
Okay, good. You remembered them all.
Yes, and they were named after the royal family. My mom named it. Yeah.
Very nice.
So it's easy to remember. But yeah, our house is just full of cats. I mean, nobody wants to burglarize us because the cats scare them. So.
Since you were talking about Nikki Bella, what's the story of her knocking your teeth out at a house show?
Ooh, you really did want the tea today. So yeah, my front teeth aren't real, amongst other things. But listen, we're at a comedy club. When you're a lady wrestler, listen, a lot of things get kind of crazy. I feel like at night when I come home after a match, I'm like pulling out hair extensions, I'm pulling off eyelashes, I'm taking off my tanner, and it's like, TJ's like, who is that? I'm like, this is me, okay, I'm putting on my pajamas. But Nikki we had been on a live event. It was in Las Vegas, and it was like a 6-woman tag. It was like me, Carmella, and Alexa were a team, and it was against Nikki and 2 other girls, and Nikki tackled me. She gave me a crazy shoulder tackle that turned into a headbutt, and I lost my 2 front teeth. So there was a picture that kind of went viral of my teeth that were missing, and I was with Renee Young because when I got my teeth knocked out, I was like, I knew what happened. I gave them to the referee, who gave them to the security guard. That I didn't know the security guard. He just had my teeth in his hand. And then I remember Alexa Bliss saying, "Do you want me to finish the match?" And I was like, "I've got this. I'm already in there. I'm good." Anyway, finished the match like a pro. And afterwards, I remember Renee driving me to an emergency dentist at like midnight in Las Vegas, and I got 2 fake front teeth put back. Like, they made me a little bridge, and it was like it got me through the weekend. But yeah, there's a lot of teeth that I have that aren't real. And I will give Nikki all the credit for that, Nicole. Nicole, I blame for that.
What was the conversation with her after? Was she like, oh my gosh?
Well, we just have a mutual thing when it comes to she and Brie are, I would not want to get into a fight with either one of them. Because they're tough. They are so tough. I mean, yes, Nikki is beautiful, but when we're in the ring, it's no holds barred. Things happen, and there's wardrobe malfunctions. I mean, I'm telling you, the craziest stuff happens when you're wrestling. Before I go into a match, I am taped down, locked down. I've got 2 bras on, 3 pairs of underwear. I mean, it gets crazy because the second that you let your guard down in a match, whether it's somebody hitting you a little hard or I felt bad for one of the girls at Rumble because I think it was Lyra, her her little, something came undone, but anything can happen. When you're out there in front of a live audience and everybody's kind of hitting each other and going after it, and suplexes and body slams and crazy stuff happens. So teeth get knocked out, hair extensions get pulled out. I remember I was in a match with Alicia Fox, and I had quite a few hair extensions in that day. Yes, none of this is real, by the way. And she had put her knee on I think she was doing a leg drop or something, and she got up, and anyway, half of my hair came out on live TV on Raw, and I was like, screw it, let's make it part of the match. So I told her to grab the hair and wave it around, and I had a hissy fit, and it was I remember Jennifer Hudson was sitting front row, and she was like, that was just great improv. That was just and I was like, you gotta do what you gotta do. We planned that actually backstage. We walked through all that with the hair. Yeah. We were just trying to make it more girly and entertaining, and I was like, oh my gosh, the things that happen, you gotta think fast.
Your name was one of the ones that was being thrown around when they were talking about the inaugural WWE Women's Intercontinental Champion. And I was making a strong case for, like, it should be Natty. What did it mean to you to have that backing from the fans?
I mean, here's the thing, is it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, wrestling owes me nothing. And so while my family has done incredible things in WWE, especially holding that championship,
Yes.
the IC title, I feel like it's the workhorse title. So people, everybody that had supported me and said, we want Natty to have that. Like, I was so grateful for that. But, like, it's also something that I want to earn. And I think that's the cool thing about Triple H in this new era, is that as much as I would have loved to have been the first IC women's champion, I do think everything we do, especially in WWE, and why this era is so cool and so different, is it's all about the story. And I think it's all about the chase. It's all about the story. And that's what I love about Kofi's story, I know Kofi's a heel right now, but when it was Kofi Mania.
We don't like Kofi.
We don't like Kofi right now, but I remember I remember Kofi when it was Kofi Mania, and it was like, years ago, and it was...
We liked him then.
We liked him then, but like he had this cool story. And so you look at Jey Uso, it's just something very, very organic. I remember starting with the Usos, and like the Usos, they just work so hard. Like Jey, I've seen Jey and Jimmy had their very first match against the Hart Dynasty in WWE, and I just remember like they've always been humble. They've always been so hardworking. They've just always been like, so when there's a really, really great story there, that's what makes winning it special. So, and that's what I love truly about this new era, it's about the story. I really want, and I do believe in my heart I will win that championship one day, because my destiny is always chasing, and it's like that for all of us. If you just keep fighting and pushing and don't give up, I believe it will happen. But I really want the story to be there, and that's what I feel like Triple H has been very good at, with not just the women's division, but with the company as a whole, is that it's like when you read a great book and you turn the page, when you want to get to the next chapter, you're wanting to see what the next chapter is. So like when Raw goes off the air, when NXT goes off the air, when SmackDown goes off the air, we want to see what the next chapter is. That's why we tune in the following week. The matches aren't exciting and the championships aren't exciting unless the story is there. So that's what is so special about this era. And it goes back to like Mid-South. It goes back to that old school, it's almost very linear to where WWE in this Netflix era is now, because it's got to be about the story. And I think about Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, WrestleMania 10. I mean, to me, I'm biased, but I think it's one of the greatest opening WrestleMania matches ever. But they had a great story. And it's, and I've spoken about this before, but Owen would have never had that match had Bret not fought to get him that match. That match was actually supposed to be for someone else. And Bret said, no, I want Owen to have that match. I want Owen to, I want to have this story with Owen. And so they made this beautiful, created this beautiful brother versus brother story. And it was one of the most special matches in Owen's career, but like it wouldn't have been that special had they not had the story.
Yeah, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, too. It's so good. You've known TJ forever. What was your reaction when you saw him do the hair? Whatever we call this.
First of all, I couldn't stand TJ's hair like that. I thought it looked hideous. But so TJ was just trying to do something to stand out. We as wrestlers experiment. I've had many different experiments with clothing, hairdos, this, that, and everything else.
Did he tell you he was going to do it? Or did he just come out of the bathroom one day and was like, look at this?
So yeah, he was going to Japan. It was his I think it was his second trip maybe to Japan, to New Japan. He was working for New Japan. And so before he went to Japan, he's like, I just want to do something different, stand out a little bit. So he basically cut all of his hair off and just left these little like bangs. And Jushin Thunder Liger, who of course is a huge international star, but a very, very big star in Japan, Jushin Liger loved it and told TJ that he loved his hair. And so TJ's like, Jushin Liger loves my hair. I can't cut my hair. I got to keep my hair like this. So yeah, it's just, it was a hideous haircut. I'm so happy that we're over that. But I made TJ, I thought it would be funny if TJ had like grown his hair out for our wedding, because we did our wedding on Total Divas.
Yeah.
And so I told TJ to grow his hair out. And I remember like now that I look back at our old wedding pictures and stuff, I'm like, oh, I wish he hadn't grown his hair out. But
you wanted him to have the bangs for your wedding photo?
Let's find a happy medium, guys. But yeah, TJ was trying to take risks, and so I mean, TJ also. I mean, that hairdo was a heelish hairdo. He had heat with that hairdo. But TJ is a heel. He's very much a gangster.
Like a real life heel?
Oh, a real life heel. The thing with TJ is that he's not afraid to speak his mind, but sometimes, like, I'm always like, tiptoeing around. When you're part of the women's locker room, you got to make sure that nobody has hurt feelings, and you got to make sure that you handle everything very carefully because all the girls are sensitive. But TJ's very he's very much a heel in a good way. He's honest, he's open, he's gonna tell you the truth, and he hasn't even, he's gonna tell you the truth even if he hasn't had a glass of red wine. He's gonna tell you the truth.
Well, so that's his drink, red wine.
No. I always say that, I always joke around with the girls that, give me a glass of red wine, and I'll start telling the truth. And then Natty turns heel. But, no, TJ's, he's the best. He really is. He's the definition of loyalty, I think. He's so loyal.
We got to see so much of what your relationship is like on Total Divas. And what else was really cool about that show is we got to see your relationship with your father. And I think people know Jim The Anvil Neidhart as a wrestler, but we got to learn about him as a dad, and that guy's hilarious.
My dad, honestly, I remember when my dad came to my kindergarten PTA meeting, and he showed up on a ninja motorcycle with no shirt on. He was wearing a fanny pack. Remember that little pink hat my dad used to wear? It was just this little pink hat. He showed up with that hat on and a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses. He showed up like the Anvil. But he had no shirt on. He had 3 different types of spandex on that were layered because he loved spandex. And he had these knee pads that were on, he was wearing Reebok's pumps, but then the knee pads were down by his shoes. So they were he looked like a pony that was... And he showed up to the PTA meeting like that. I remember it was kindergarten. All the other kids, it was bring your parent to work day. And all the other kids' parents were I'm a dentist, and I'm a librarian, and I'm a banker. And, my dad came in, and I was so excited. I mean, sweat was dripping off of his chest. He had no shirt on, and he was wearing spandex and a Rolex watch, and he just looked like a maniac. And of course, I was so excited. Think about it. This guy's 300 pounds. He's got no shirt on. He looks he's just barrel chested.
He's got that goatee.
I would say he was just resembling Otis at some points.
Oh. Yeah.
So he comes in, and so then it's my dad's turn to talk. And and so I'm thinking, I'm so excited. I'm in kindergarten here. My dad tells everybody in the kindergarten class that don't worry about going to school, worry about doing well in sports. He's and I was even as a 6-year-old, and the teacher was trying to pull my dad off stage like a referee trying to interfere in a match. She was like, get him off stage. My dad's like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about doing well in school. What you need to do is do well in sports, because I got everything from sports. I never even went to class. I had people my mom, and we were like, oh my God, my dad was literally telling these kindergartners not to worry about school. And so I will never forget that. They never invited him back. And I was I'm so traumatized. My parents are crazy, but my dad especially. When your dad's the Anvil, he's the Anvil. He's the Anvil on television. He's the Anvil. He's the Anvil at home. That's why a lot of guys didn't ask me out when I was in high school. People didn't want to knock on the door and get my dad pulling a beard, going hi, can I help you? People did guys did not ask me out. So going back to your question, when my dad was on Total Divas, he was a trip on that show. I mean, he definitely just let loose. And I think he loved doing that show because once his career was over in wrestling, it gave him a chance to feel like he was still a part of something, because it's hard sometimes when you're an athlete and back when my dad was alive and we were doing Total Divas, he wasn't, gosh, it's kind of hard even saying this, but he didn't always feel like he was wanted. WWE does so much more now to honor legends and to bring back people and to go, to do but back then they weren't doing all of that. It was hard unless you were getting put in the Hall of Fame, which my dad was when he was alive, he was pissed off that he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. He was why the hell is Hillbilly Jim in before me? But I mean, I'm just being honest. Those wrestlers have all those. My dad loved Hillbilly Jim, but he's
Hillbilly Jim.
My dad loved Hillbilly Jim, but he's damn it, I should be in there before Hillbilly Jim. But But my dad was so funny on Total Divas because he really felt like he felt like, now I'm gonna have Hillbilly Jim calling me.
It's gonna be the one headline from this interview.
But my dad just felt like he got to be a part of something, and he loved like the limelight. He loved the cameras on him, and he loved all the attention, and he loved feeling like he was a part of something. So that's one of the things I loved about Total Divas is I loved having my dad included on that show, even if gummies were involved.
The other thing that Total Divas gave us was perhaps the loudest and craziest slap we've ever seen.
Was that me slapping Lana? Summer. Oh my God, I forgot about slapping Summer. Yes, yes. That bitch.
Was that just one take and that was it?
So here's the thing about Summer. Summer drove me crazy. I do like her. She's a very sweet girl. I start a lot of my shade off with that.
There's a
She's
butt
very
coming
sweet.
Here, yeah.
No, but Summer, the thing about the women's division too is like it's very competitive. So she knocks on my door, and so I guess the producers were like, "Listen, Nattie will do anything. Nattie is just great. She'll play ball, sort of thing." It's like, yeah. First of all, Summer and I had real conflict at that point. And secondly, Summer hauled off, and I opened my door. She slapped me across the face. My neighbors, they didn't talk to me again after that. They were like watching, and they were like, "What's going on in that house? There's cameras. There's women slapping each other." Summer ran she ran through my lawn. I tripped in the bushes. It was crazy. I was like, "What is going on?" But Summer was like, she just was very, during that time, I think she was very dramatic. She settled down a lot. That was crazy. But listen, there was a solid receipt for Summer. So I tied her up quite a few times in the Sharpshooter, and she had perfect legs for it. Perfect.
Quick time out from this episode. Being an adult has its high points. Like, you can eat ice cream for any meal that you want. You get to pick your own bedtime, but it's not all fun. Sometimes there's like some real adult stuff, like doing your taxes or making doctor's appointments. At least for that one though, we've got ZocDoc, the healthcare app that makes adulting that much easier. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click instantly to book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, eye care to skincare, and so much more. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. Some can even happen the same day. This is something that I use, and I know that you'll love it as well. I just booked a dermatologist appointment using ZocDoc and got in on the same day. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/insight to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/insight.
I'm gonna ask you a really tough one. Can you give me your Canadian Mount Rushmore?
Ooh, okay, drum roll.
But
I already know who I'm gonna pick.
But you can't pick any Harts.
Oh, come on! Oh my God. What? You are begging to be put in the Sharpshooter. You are begging to be. Oh my gosh. Wait,
Because otherwise
you are
you would just
killing me.
you'd list all the Harts.
I
get it.
I need a sip
Rightfully
of water,
so.
right?
Okay. I mean, I think I asked you this years ago, and you were like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Stu Hart, and like I don't know, British Bulldog or something.
Yeah. No, this is tough. I mean, damn, that's a tough question. Holy moly, I need a glass of red wine.
No Hart adjacent. Okay.
Okay. No Hearts. Can I just start this off by saying I think Bret Hart is really the greatest of all time?
Who's going to disagree?
No, I mean, okay, I will get to that. Let me simmer. Let me simmer on that. I think, though, like, when I think of the greatest professional wrestlers ever, I feel like Bret he's so much more appreciated now than ever before because people are able to really, like, understand what his body of work is. His matches, they're still so relevant. They're still so talked about. People... Like, I think about his match with Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13. I think it was one of the, if not the greatest WrestleMania match ever. Think about Bret versus Shawn Michaels. Their Iron Man match. That was insane. Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect. Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog, SummerSlam. Like Bret's body of work, it's like he is just, I think as far as the greatest professional wrestler ever, and I know I'm biased, but I just don't know if anybody else is ever gonna like be able to top that. So I think, The Rock and Steve Austin, they're entertainers. Ric Flair's, I feel like, but Bret, as far as like wrestling. Okay, back to the question. I'm dripping sweat, by the way. I've got like sweat dripping down my back. I'm trying to answer who are my Canadian Mount Rushmore. Okay, he's a very close personal friend, and I think the world of him. Edge.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And a great little thing about Edge is that Edge, he's obviously one of the most decorated superstars ever, but Edge was somebody that like when I would have problems with promos, or when I needed to work on promos, or that I wanted to like get better at promos, I would text him and say, hey, can I get on a call with you and like, can you help me with a promo? He would drop everything that he was doing to get on a call with me and talk to me for like an hour and a half and walk me through a promo.
Wow.
And so like, not only, he's incredible and his body of work is incredible, but he's just like great. Like he's helped me so much as a friend. And so I think sometimes Adam doesn't get, like people don't know about that kind of stuff. Like he's just very genuine. And I always remember him like helping me and saying like, say it like this, Nattie. And like, then he would watch the promo, he'd call me back, he'd analyze it with me. And it was nice to have somebody like that really care and help. So that's my little Edge thing.
Yeah.
We can't say Edge without Christian.
Yeah.
Because it's funny because like I watched a match. I think it was on SmackDown. I can't quite remember, but I watched a match between Christian and Randy Orton, and I thought like, wow, they have magical chemistry. And I like, I always knew I liked Christian, but I remember watching Christian in there with Randy, and I was like, you just see that even though he's in there with Randy, who's obviously a huge leader in the ring, Christian is a leader. He's a bad guy, he's a heel, but like, and he spent a lot of his career being a heel, but Christian is just, he's very, very good. And he's one of my favorites.
Okay, that's two. This is where it starts to get tough, because you're like, oh, now I'm leaving people out.
I know. Okay, I am going to say somebody that's a little bit left field, because people would obviously think, Nattie's going to say, like, Trish Stratus. And of course, I do think Trish is amazing. I think she's incredible. I think she's done so much as a pioneer for women's wrestling. But for me, I'm always going to have a spot in my heart for the underdog. And Gail Kim. Yeah. And so it's nothing to take away from Trish by any means, because I think Trish is awesome. But knowing Gail Kim the way that I do, and knowing like how talented she is, and the way like she's had some really great matches. And I know some of her best work has been in TNA against like I know Tiffany or Taryn Terrell. Yep. Sorry, she used to be Tiffany in WWE. Gail and Taryn Terrell, Gail and Kong. Just Gail, the thing about Gail is that not only, so once her career was done, she wasn't done giving back. And that's what I love about Gail, is that behind the scenes, if people actually knew the stuff that Gail does behind the scenes, it's just incredible. She really helps like give women opportunities that might not have gotten opportunities before. Just a few weeks ago, she had reached out to me about something, and we were able to help someone, and she was just like, I want to make sure that more women get opportunities that wouldn't have had a chance to get opportunities. And so she's always fighting for the underdog. She loves wrestling. She's so talented. And she, to me, deserves her flowers. So as far as, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as Canadian.
So now there's just one spot left.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Well,
oh my goodness.
Here's the thing. I know I've said a lot of people that may not necessarily be in WWE, but we can't say the greatest Canadian wrestlers without bringing up Chris Jericho. So Jericho, actually it's funny because Jericho interviewed my dad. That was the last interview my dad ever had. And so Jericho had asked me, hey, like I'd love to interview your dad for my podcast. And I remember saying to Chris, like, I've just been really careful about not letting my dad do a lot of that kind of stuff because he's not been feeling himself lately. And Chris the way he treated my dad and the way that he just handled the interview with so much respect, because my dad was at that time struggling a little bit with his memory and stuff. Chris was so amazing to my dad, but when you think about Chris, when I think Chris is a friend of mine, but when I think about Chris's body of work, it's hard to leave him. You cannot leave Chris Jericho out of the conversation.
Yeah, and the way that he reinvents himself every handful of years, it's incredible.
Yeah, he's just like, and it's just so hard because I'm good friends with Kevin Owens and I love Sami Zayn but when I think about, we got to think about body of work. You know, when you think about it's just, Chris has been a part of very pivotal times in the industry. You think about like his Y2J stuff, and you think about like...
It's one of the greatest WWE debuts of all time.
And you think about the stuff that he did even when he was in Japan. A lot of like, he's also, and again, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I like every time there's ever a GoFundMe for anyone, you see like Chris Jericho's name at the top of the list as the highest donor, like the highest person donating to like people that he doesn't know. Yeah. You know, people like, he's helped people in my family like with stuff like that. And so I think Chris is awesome. I think Edge is awesome. I think Christian is awesome. And I think Gail is awesome. And so to me, like, that's hard. I'm blown up. I am blown up.
That's a pretty great Mount Rushmore, not including any Harts.
It's just tough because, like I said, I have so many Canadian friends. Like, I should have thought about Chelsea Green because she's amazing. But, you know, we got to give Gail her flowers. But I love Chelsea Green. How funny is Chelsea? I love her.
Hilarious. Talk to me about this match where you were working with Bret Hart. It was you and Bret against Charlotte and Ric Flair. And at the end of that, it's a double sharpshooter. What did that match mean to you?
Well, that match actually was really, like, that day was really emotional because Bret had just, like, beaten cancer. So that was his first appearance that he had done after beating cancer. And so I remember asking Bret, like, hey, they want to bring you in for this show. It was like Payback, I think, was the pay-per-view. And it was in Chicago. And Bret was like, you know, he had just gone through so much. And so it was such a special time because it was his first appearance back from beating cancer. And listen, there's no better feeling than locking Ric Flair into a sharpshooter. But it was just, I love collaborating and working with Bret, and he's been part of like such special moments for me in my career where, like, you know, it's never lost on me when I've asked him to be there for me and for him to help me, he's helped me. And so to be able to do double sharpshooters with Bret, it's always so special. I appreciate him so much because, you know, even for my dad's career, like, and I say this to Bret all the time, that's why I wanted my dad and Bret to go into the Hall of Fame together. Because I was asked by Vince, you know, Vince said to me, he's like, well, do you want your dad to go in alone or do you want him to go in? And my dad would never have had the things that he had in WWE. He never would have had that career had Bret not looked out for him the way that he did. And so sometimes Bret, like, I always hear Bret talking about my dad and he's like, I never would have, you know, found that personality without the Anvil. But Bret really took care of my dad. He looked out for my dad. Bret's done some great things for our family that aren't always talked about, you know, and it's funny even just sharing with you guys, but like, and I've actually never said this in interviews before, but like, if Bret hadn't fought for Owen to get that WrestleMania 10 match, Owen never would have gotten that. Bret fought very, very hard for my dad and him to win the tag team championships. And when they won them, I don't think they were supposed to win them. And Bret fought really hard, and he fought really hard for them to have great matches and fought really hard for my dad to, like, whenever the Hart Foundation was losing, Bret would always be the one that would take the fall. And then he's like, the Anvil can't get pinned. You know, Bret's the Porsche. My dad was the tank. He's like, the tank gets pinned. We're dead in the water. He did so much to protect my dad. You know, I just think about the work that, you know, even with Davey and SummerSlam, like, that match was so special. And I'm so happy that Bret and Davey got to have that incredible match. And it was because they came together, and I think Bret and Davey really had a vision for that match, but Bret really doesn't always get the credit for, like, helping so many people, especially, like, within our family, but, like, so many people in general. He was somebody that Steve Austin says, listen, I never would have turned that corner without Bret doing that for me at WrestleMania. And actually, Bret has a restaurant bar called Hitman's in Calgary. And his daughter reached out to me and said, listen, I want to surprise my dad for his birthday. Can you help me? And she's like, I want to get this picture. If we can get Steve Austin to sign this picture I want to frame it and give it to my dad. So I reached out to Steve Austin. I showed him the picture. I said, we'll send it to you, and if you could just sign it to Bret, we want to surprise it. You give him the picture as a surprise. Steve was so excited to do that. He wrote this little kind of like a little love letter to Bret on the picture, and just said, I never would have been what I became without you. And Bret has it at his bar with the razor blade.
Wow.
With the razor blade from that match. But Bret has done, I want to give Bret his flowers. I know he's the hitman, everybody, he has, but sometimes people don't know about that stuff behind the scenes that he's done that really has helped a lot of people. It's the industry, what I love about wrestling is I love being able to help others. I love when other people help others. I love when you see people, that's what I love about my ring, is when people are in there and they just get it. It just clicks for them. I see B-Fab in our ring, and she's been coming for 3 years. She flies herself in, she gets there and she gets it. I just love, I said to TJ, I said, even it just makes my heart so full to see when the light bulb goes off for someone, or helping someone get a tryout, or giving someone a great match. Or all my favorite matches are the matches that I've lost, but I saw something go off in my opponent's eyes that felt like Charlotte for that takeover match that we had. Yeah. Those are the things I love about wrestling. I just love everybody giving back and making this beautiful story with each other. That's what I love about this.
I love that. We're going to open it up to Q&A in just a minute here, but I have just one final question for you. It's a question that I end every interview with, because gratitude's such a big part of my life. Nattie, what are 3 things you're grateful for right now?
I am grateful for my health. Knock on wood. I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm so grateful for my health. If you're not healthy, your health is everything. I'm just grateful that I get to do what I love, because it's just, some people never get the chance to touch their dreams. Not everybody gets the chance to do that. And so for me, I'm just so grateful. And that's I think that's a big part of what keeps me motivated, is just gratitude that I get to do this. The other thing that I'm grateful for, Louis Vuitton. I'm just kidding. I'm not. I am grateful for my family. My family means everything to me. I'm so grateful for them. I would have had none of this without my grandfather, my family paving the way for me and taking a ton of body slams so that I could go into Louis Vuitton and buy the cute shoes that I like. So
these aren't Louis Vuitton. These are Louboutin.
These are Louis, but I don't discriminate. Louis.
I'm grateful that we somehow made it through this whole interview without being put in the sharpshooter.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Speaking of a sharpshooter, okay, you're not going to get out of this interview without being put in the sharpshooter. And I'm going to take my heels off. The heels are coming off. Should I put... Sharpshooter! Okay, great.
I feel like we gotta clear the stage here.
Assume the position.
Oh my goodness.
You guys laughing at all my jokes, I love it so much. Okay, so it's not... listen, it might hurt a little bit, but you gotta go on your back. We gotta save a little space.
I think we gotta take the jacket off here.
Yeah, go take the jacket off. I took my shoes off. And I also want to make sure you have a good chiropractor. You got a good chiropractor, right? Sure. Good. I've got some on speed dial that I can refer you to. Okay, great.
Chris Sharp.
Okay, this is here's the thing. Okay, here's how it's gonna work. It's gonna hurt a little bit. Okay. So I'm gonna set my leg through. Relax.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You guys are so amazing. That was like, I am.
Wow.
This is like my WrestleMania right now. Thank you.
If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have done that. Let me grab my coat here. Wow. If you've got a question now, we'll open it up. Okay, and your question can't be, can you put me in the sharpshooter? Bring
Oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun.
Bring your chair back up to where we were.
I really don't want this to end. Are you okay? I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're lucky that I didn't.
I'm selling.
He's lucky that I didn't really lock it in. I didn't
What?
really. Have you seen me put the sharpshooter on Melina?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Harris.
I let you off pretty easy.
Okay. We'll start over here. What's your name?
Colby. So Natalya, you're the GOAT.
Thank you.
We all agree on that.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you.
Recently, a report came out that the women found Triple H's booking unhappy. They're unhappy with it, and I view you as somebody that is very unutilized. What's your stance on that?
Here's my thing, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that I was actually saying this, I was talking to my mom. I talk to my mom about everything. And I was saying, like, sometimes it's so easy, especially with, nowadays, we all have access. We all have a platform. If you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on social media, you have a platform. Oh, by the way, I'm breathing heavy from that sharpshooter.
Yeah, me too.
But we all have a platform, and that's the cool thing about, like, this day and age, is that everybody has a voice. It is so easy. It would be so easy for me to, like, go on social media and be like, I'm mad about this, and I'm mad about that, and I'm not, I should have this, and I should have that. Like, I would have loved to have been the first ever women's IC champion. I would have loved that. For me, and this is the big thing, is that there just has to be the right story. And so that's, I think, everybody wants everything now. We're living in a world of instant gratification where we want everything right now. And so there's always going to be times where people feel like we should have this, and the women's division should do that, and there should be this. And it's like, I do think that booking a weekly TV show, it's not easy. Like, it's especially because there's lots of things that happen behind the scenes that people just don't know about. Somebody gets hurt, or somebody can't make it, or, this isn't where we're going for the big picture. Like, of course, I would love to do more in WWE. But I also want there to be the right story, and I also would never, I think there's a big, especially being somebody that is, has been in WWE for 18 years. Like, I would love to do more, but I also understand that timing is everything. So I have faith that the right story will come. And actually, I feel like we're right around the corner from some big announcements being made, especially with with what I'm doing, that those stories will come to. I'm leaving you guys on such a cliffhanger. Those stories will come to fruition. So yeah, I mean, it's easy to critique. But at the same time, I try to be patient, I try to empathize, and also the one thing I do is I make suggestions. Rather than be like, I should have this, I should have that, I go, hey, I have an idea. We don't like that. Hey, I got an idea. We don't like that. Hey, I got an idea. Something is gonna stick. And so I have faith that I think that things are gonna get exciting. It's just not easy because also right now we just have so many women. And I think that it's a good thing, but it's also challenging because you want to make sure that everybody has a special place, And I think that's the thing, is that back a few years ago, sometimes I'd be on TV every single week, but I wasn't always doing the most meaningful things. I mean, at one point I was passing gas. And so it's like, I'm joking about that, but it's like, I think what I do like about this new era is that we're just trying to find the right stories. And I think, we all want more. You're only human to want more, but I also think that, let's just see what happens.
All right. Where's
Thank you. I have faith.
Hello.
Yes, sir. What's your name?
Sylvan. All right. So besides the Hart Foundation, what faction of any faction would you be a part of?
Ooh. Judgment Day.
And why?
Listen, I love Liv, and Liv is actually an original dungeon. She's a dungeon OG. Of course, Raquel is a dungeon OG. If you saw JD McDonough's performance, his last match, I mean, you guys saw that. I'm still blown away by the amount of grit that he wrestled that match after breaking a rib and puncturing a lung. Like, that's passion to me. And I think about, like, Carlito. I mean, if I want apples, I know where to go. I just think Judgment Day is so cool, and I think that would be a cool team to be a part of. Nattie kind of exploring her inner goth side, so to speak.
Ooh, what if we go old school? Would you rather be in DX or the NWO?
Damn. Oh man, that's a hard, well,
I don't know if we can picture you in either of them.
yeah, I would say NWO Natty.
For life. For life, right? Where
You're
is
right.
How about we go right in the middle here, Harris? I can actually see, so.
Hi, Natty. Larry speaking. You've been there since the Divas division started. What would you say is your favorite match?
Since the Diva, so it's so hard to think about my favorite matches. I mean, I think there's a few that are so special to me. I think about, like, it's funny, I don't talk about this match enough, but the match that I had in 2019 in Toronto against Becky Lynch at SummerSlam, it's one of my favorite matches of my career, and I don't talk about it enough. But Becky actually fought really hard for me to have that story. And a lot of people don't know that, but like, Becky pitched for me to have that match with her at SummerSlam in 2019. And that's what I love about Becky, is actually that she fights for women in our division that are in rooms that they're not, like, when I wasn't in the room when she fought for me and said, I want to work with Nattie. And we only had 5 weeks to kind of tell the story, but I loved that match. I opened up SummerSlam in 2019 in Toronto against Becky Lynch, and it was so much fun. I loved our chemistry. She always wants to do what's best for the story. She was so giving. She let me hit her really hard. She hit me really hard. No, but we just had such a great story. I love that match. And I think a match that that means the world to me is my match against Charlotte Flair at TakeOver 2014. That match will always be like my WrestleMania moment. It was only in front of 200 people. And I just loved, it's like when I was saying earlier about giving back, and you see somebody's eyes light up when they get it. And that was her after that match. And she was so gracious. She was so excited. She was just such a dream opponent. And it's like the second I locked up with her, I just knew that we were just going to have a magical match. But it was just such a special match. And I've wrestled more matches than any other woman in WWE history. And some of my most special matches have been me losing and me only in front of 200 people. And so it's just you never know what's going to be meaningful for you. It's really all about the story and all about the connection that makes matches special.
All right. How about we go over?
He's wearing a Natty Cat shirt.
Okay. So right down here.
I want to answer. I want to get kicked out of here. So basically,
we
I want.
have like 10 more minutes.
Okay, but I want them to be like, get off the stage, Natty. So
right down here.
You're in the pink
Yes.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What?
Hey, Natty, it's Eddie.
Eddie.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I know you were talking earlier about each roster, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. There's no denying that the NXT roster is stacked right now.
Right.
Are there any individuals that you're sort of like chomping at the bit to get into the ring with? I know you've already been in the ring with like Roxanne, but like maybe somebody like a Julia or a Stephanie Vaquer or.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many women at NXT right now that are just like, to me, I would absolutely love to tango with Jordynne Grace. Yeah. I would love to work with her because she loves this. She's a student of the game. I look at these pictures of her transformation from when she first started to where she is now. And she is a student of the game. I would absolutely love to kick her ass. Yes.
Okay, let's go over to this side of the room here, Harris. These are great questions, by the way.
Yeah, you guys are amazing.
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, my name is Leah. Hi, Natty.
Hi, Leah. Okay, this works for me.
I was a big fan of you on Total Divas. You were like the Lisa Barlow, the Kyle Richards, the Nene Leakes. You were the star. would you want to do something like that today? And if you did, what women would you want to star with you?
Well, I love Total Divas because, I mean, I know I cried a lot on the show. I was always a part of a lot of drama. I was like, I mean, it didn't matter who was on. I was always in every single season of that show, and I was always a part of so much drama, and I loved every second of it. But I would love to do something like that again. And I think like now that WWE is, we're on Netflix, I think there's lots of room for that kind of content. I would love to see like a revamped show, a whole brand new modern version of Total Divas. And if I were to pick like, let's just say a cast of 6, I would pick Liv Morgan. I'd pick Tiffany Stratton. I would pick Maxine Dupree. Gosh, I'm picking a lot of blondes. I can't not have an OG Total Diva in there. I would have Trinity, Naomi. I'd have Nikki Bella. You got to bring Nikki back. I mean, Nikki's...
Of course, yeah.
She's going to bring the wine. She's going to bring a little drama, but she's going to kick a little ass. Gosh, who's not afraid of drama is Nia Jax. I know I probably went over the cast, like it's like 6, 7, but yeah, those are like some of the people that I'd have on. Did I say Chelsea Green? So Chelsea would be...
You could just keep naming people.
Chelsea, oh my God. Chelsea would be so fun on that show. But yeah, those are like... It's hard to pick because it's like... But those are people like... I got to pick some OG Total Divas, but like I do think... Like, I think just... That would be a fun like combination of girls. But yes, I'm always down for that.
Yeah. Would you guys watch that show?
Yeah.
I'd watch that show. Okay, throw your hand up there. Where? Yeah, right over there.
Hello, my name's Thomas. I will concur with the previous that you on Total Divas, especially with your mom, your dad, and your sister. My dad enjoyed watching that with us. But my question for you is, a lot of people know things about Bret and Owen and Stu, but do you have any good memories of your grandma, Helen?
Ooh, my grandmother, Helen Hart, we always, she's the Queen of Hearts. She's the original Queen of Hearts. My grandmother, she was actually the real woman. Like, she was the real person behind Stampede Wrestling, like the real boss. She was the boss behind Stampede Wrestling. So my grandfather essentially was the promoter for Stampede Wrestling. My grandmother was in charge. So when Andre the Giant got his paychecks, he had to go through Helen. And, she was just the one that she could charm the pants off anyone. And actually, this is a really cool story, and I've never shared this. That song, Pomp and Circumstance? Yeah. So it's Randy Savage's song, and it was Gorgeous George's ring music. And the reason why it was Gorgeous George's ring music is because he worked for my grandfather in the 40s, and he never had ring music before. And my grandmother came up with the idea for Gorgeous George to come out she went to the Calgary Public Library and got the song. And she suggested to Gorgeous George that he should come out to Pomp and Circumstance, and he loved the song, and he came from that moment on, working for my grandfather, he always came out to that song. So, and he's one of the very first professional wrestlers ever to come out with to do his ring entrance with music.
Wow.
So it was my grandmother, Helen Hart, that actually was the reason behind that. It's a really cool story that I've never shared, but it's just, my grandmother was just brilliant. She was like a genius.
I think we've got time for maybe 2 more? 2 more.
You guys are asking the best questions,
These are
by the way.
great questions. We're right over here.
Hey, Nattie, Matt. So you've had an amazing career, but I'm sure there were trials along the way. So I was wondering if you could maybe share something that got you heat backstage, either with another wrestler or the brass.
Did I like do backstage or sorry?
Yeah, like just something either unintentional or just something that happened.
Like a bump in the road here. Yeah.
Something like
something that happened that didn't go your way. You've had so much success. What's something that didn't?
I have bumps in the road like every single day, including getting here. I was running on the street trying to get into the front.
You guys notice we were slightly late? Toronto traffic.
I was like, wait. I mean, that's the thing is that like we're all human, and so I always say this to the girls because I've been in the locker room now for 18 years. We're all human. We all want more. We're all very competitive. Of course, we have bumps in the road. We have disagreements. We have conflict. I think it's part of being human, but it's also like for me. I think it's important to go through those, like, it's important to go through, like, those rough patches, because if life was easy, well, what do we learn? You know what I mean? The biggest lessons, the best lessons I've learned are usually coming from things that are hard. You know, like when TJ got hurt in WWE, when he got injured, that was a really big hardship for me. That was very challenging for both myself and TJ. But I look at where TJ is at now, and I think that was like the biggest bump in the road for me in my whole like professional career. I am so grateful in a lot of ways that TJ's where he's at right now, because he's bringing so much to WWE in ways that he never would have done before. He's really able to make a massive impact in the women's division. A lot of the matches that you see and love, TJ has a big part in helping the girls come alive in those matches. And so had that injury, that major bump in the road, had that never happened, we may not have TJ doing what he does, helping produce a television show weekly in WWE. And so he's been such a massive asset. And I don't know, and this isn't saying that TJ's wrestling career wasn't great, but I don't know if his wrestling career could have done that alone. He wouldn't have had the kind of impact that he has now if he was just a wrestler in WWE. So it's like funny, because that was like the hardest thing that I ever went through. It really rocked me, and TJ like rocked us to our core, but it also we were able to help so many people from it, and it really helped kind of change our lives in a way that we never expected, in like the best possible way. Great question.
Okay, we have time for just one more. I'm gonna let you choose, Natty. Oh wow, that was quick.
Yes, because
we'll bring the mic down.
Because the reason why is because you've been yes.
Okay.
You talked about the women's division being the best it's ever been, and obviously the new Intercontinental and women's United States title. What does the women's division need to get to the next level? What's the next thing on the horizon for the women's division?
For me, I think these questions are amazing. I feel like I'm on Dateline NBC. I'm getting all the tough questions. It's like, you're Katie Couric, and I mean, listen, we can't, the thing about this division is that nobody can get comfortable. So that's why I say, like, and I use myself as an example, is like, I've been in WWE for 18 years, but when I signed my new contract last June, I asked myself, I'm like, am I good enough to be in this division? And what do I need to keep doing to prove myself? And what do I need to do to push myself every day and not rest on just my last performance, or that I did this, or that I did that, or that, like, every single girl needs to stay hungry, and everybody needs to fight and not rest on, oh, we had a great week last week. You know, I think that everybody needs to bring ideas to the table and also utilize every resource that we have, which is like, what I love about Chelsea Green is that, you know, she might only get 20 seconds on SmackDown, but she maximizes every resource, because we all have the ability to take our platform and do more with it, you know, and so that's like, I think every single person, not just the women's division, but everybody needs to continue to stay hungry and fight. And like, you know, I ask myself, like, okay, so where would I put me? If I was to book the show right now, where could I see me fitting in? And how can I suggest that? And how can we get more girls included? And how can we bring out the best stories? The matches are only matches unless they're stories. So you need to have the story behind the matches. And so it's not just about the moves, because a lot of the girls and guys can do crazy things, but they don't like mean anything unless there's stories behind it. So when the girls, like, you know, help kind of bring out the stories, and they help accentuate that on social media, and they're working on like promos, and they're cutting promos on their phone, or they're posting them on Instagram, doing things to help move along the stories. I think that everybody needs to stay hungry, myself included. You know, that's why I go to my ring and train. Not everybody has their own ring, but like, I could be like, well, I've had so many reps, I don't need to train anymore. It's like, no, if I don't train in my ring for a week, I'm rusty. I want to stay ready, because you just never know when that opportunity is going to come. You never know when you're going to get that phone call that they're like, listen, we need you on SmackDown tomorrow night. You guys are going to have this much time you have a championship match. You have to stay ready. You have to stay positive. You have to stay focused. You have to stay driven. You have to stay hungry. And you have to do whatever, there's only a handful of women in the world that get to do this at this level. And I think sometimes when I'm feeling sorry for myself, or when I'm complaining inside and I'm like, oh, I want this, or I should have that, everybody wants more. There's an independent wrestler all the way across the world that's wishing that she could have what I have. And there's a girl right now that's the women's champion that she wants more. And there's a girl that's in NXT that just can't quite break through, and she wants more. And so everybody just has to stay hungry and work hard and stay ready. And Bret actually used to always say this, and he started at the bottom and he made it to the top, but he would always say, talent cannot be stopped. And I truly, truly believe that. So that was a great question.
Nattie, you are the best. And I think you might be the nicest human on the face of the planet. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And thank you guys for being part of Insight Live here in Toronto. If you guys have the VIP tickets, I will meet you down, go through this door, and we have an area there. But give it up again, ladies and gentlemen, for the one, the only, the GOAT, Natalya.